On this episode of the After the Timeout podcast, in partnership with the IBCA, we welcome Marty Plum, head girls basketball coach at Fort Calhoun High School and creator of a Pen and a Napkin podcast. We talk to Coach Plum about picking and developing your offensive and defensive systems, choosing your core drills, deciding on your baseline and sideline out-of-bounds plays, and creating a nationwide podcast. As always, thank you for listening to the After the Timeout podcast.
So we will start this episode as we always do with what we call the opening tip. So, Coach, we just wanted you to tell us a multi-part question here, but we'll start with just tell us about Pen and Napkin and like why did you start it, how it began, a little background there.
Okay, I'll try to go through this as quickly as I can because first of all, thanks so much for having me on today, guys. Really appreciate it. I'll try to go as quickly as I can. I'm Italian. I talk a lot, so we'll do our best here. So I coached for 24 years straight, and just got burnt out. I mean, and self-inflicted, without a doubt. Just I wasn't burning it at both ends of the candle. I was burning it at every end possible of the candle, and it was time to step away. Was out for a year. Was still active. I was thankful to so many coaches who let me go watch their practices, watch games, did a little of this, did a little of that, and got done out of that first year out, interviewed for a couple of jobs, but still didn't feel right. Still wasn't completely ready to jump back in. And you guys know just as well as I do, you can't do this job unless you're really ready to do it, So it got to be about August of that year, and we have a movie theater about 4 or 5 blocks away from our house. And a lot of times, me and my wife would walk over there with our kids, and we watched a movie as a family. We're walking back, and I told my wife, hey, I just, I'm not ready to coach yet, but I want to do something, and I'm not sure what to do, and blah blah blah. And my wife, God bless her, she goes, "Well, you like to talk a lot. Why don't you create a podcast?" Oh, okay, that's a good idea. So give Carla Plum all the credit here. Started tossing some things around in my head, started thinking about this, started thinking about that. And when I was out, one of the things, and maybe I was looking in the wrong places, and that very well could be, it was hard for me to find a lot of stuff that would help out the typical high school coach. What do issues of the high school coach needs? And that's the vast majority of coaches. I mean, I always say this all the time. I love Championship Productions. They're awesome. They do great things. But when they've got a video on Gino Ariema, he's got 12 McDonald's All-Americans. I got 12 kids that eat at McDonald's. And so, what am I supposed to do with a lot of that stuff? It's great in theory, but and so that's kind of the birth of it, and it's just kind of taken off. It's been really cool. I one of my best friends in the world since I was 10 years old. I'll get somebody that's coming on the pod, and I'll be like a 10-year-old kid. Oh my God, Meyer, can you believe this? I got blank on the podcast this week, and it's just things like that, and it's been great. I hope people have enjoyed it. I hope people have gotten a lot of things from it. It's amazing. I'm sure you guys go through the same thing. You see your map of all the people that have downloaded it. You get an email from somebody in Japan, or you get an email from somebody in Australia. Hey, what's this? Or you get a direct message from somebody in Switzerland. I got questions about this. It's just been an amazing thing, and I'm just really, really blessed to have brought it out. So that's kind of the backstory of it all, and that's how it was kind of birthed. It was my wife, and kind of took it from there, and I just hope I've been able to help out some people, because I've always tried to keep in mind, what would I want if I were a basketball coach? What would be something that I would want to listen to? What would be something I would want to see on Twitter? What would be a video that would be good for me to have to help me build my program?
So you talked about your guests a little bit, but maybe go in a little bit more detail on kind of like when you're looking around, like, is it when you're picking your guests, is it like, hey, this is interesting, I'd like to talk to this person, or is it more topics, or just kind of whatever comes your way, or whatever you're like, oh, let's try this.
I don't know, whoever's home. I just randomly call people,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of everything. I try to keep it balanced. College coaches, high school coaches, male coaches, female coaches, try to keep it balanced by geography. I just try to, give a little bit of everything for everybody. Kind of like the Sizzler buffet here. And sometimes it's, uh, you know, you got to have somebody to have that has a bit of a market, um, like when I talked to Jon, it was kind of like, hey, this guy, he's from Chicago. He's got some good people here. He probably knows what he's talking about here. He's got a good following, etc. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if he'll come on here. And that's part of it. Sometimes it's through word of mouth. A previous guest will say, hey, this coach from this high school, I think he'd be a really good guest. Hey, all right, boom, 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 and call him up or reach out to him and see if we can get a hold of him. So I'd love to be able to say that myself and my production team, which my production team is me, has this method to the madness. There's not a lot to it. There's a few things that have to happen, especially when you're talking with somebody that's a bit bigger. There's a process that you have to go through, and you have to be patient, and you have to work with people. Like when you get into college coaches or NBA coaches, you usually have to go through somebody to go through somebody to go through somebody. But those folks have been awesome. Everybody's been awesome that I've ever had. I mean, I've done 176, 177 interviews, something like that, and everybody's been really great. So.
And then I want to tweak this one a little bit. So you mentioned you kind of went on a year long or however long it was to go see different coaches, right?
Yeah.
So, when you said that, it kind of piqued me, like things you kind of learned from that process to kind of help you maybe reinvigorate or just help you kind of maybe see things differently.
Yeah.
In the process.
Yeah, it was. I wish every coach could take a couple of years off in the middle of their career and kind of reevaluate. I'm good friends with Bill Finley, who's the head coach at Iowa State for the women's team. And during those 2 years off, I can't remember if it was the first year or the second year, went down and spent the weekend and watched his practices and watched a game. They played Baylor when Baylor was really rolling with Kim Mulkey and that type of thing. And we were talking, and he said, I wish I could do what you're doing right now. I mean, Bill flat out told me that, it would be great to just go around and watch other people coach. It was a process of, there were two things, fellas, that happened with that. One, I got to see a lot of good stuff. The second thing was it reaffirmed a lot of what I was doing already. Like you're in your own practice and you're sitting there going, am I doing this right? Should I not be doing it this way? Should I be doing it this way? For me personally, I felt really good about 85 to 90% of the stuff that I was doing before the sabbatical. And now it was 10 to 15% of tweaking it and doing this a little bit differently, doing that a little bit differently. And it came from all different places. It came from a girls coach at a small school, at a small high school, or it came from Coach McDermott at Creighton and watching some things that he did. It came from all over the place. And all of those tweaks, there's great coaches everywhere. My goodness gracious sakes alive. There's so many good coaches that do so many good things. And I think that sometimes we have an illusion that unless you're at the Division I level or unless you're at the NBA level or something like that, you can't listen to this coach do this or that. One of the best coaches I know is a guy I grew up with, former classmate of mine, Dick Jungers, out at Newell Fonda High School in Iowa. He's won 3-4 state championships, and he just runs a tremendous program. Again, during that sabbatical time, I got to spend 24 hours just watching Dick do his thing and in the locker room with him and all of this stuff. And we just talked hoops for 24 hours and just learned so much. And he's at a school where they have a graduating class of, I don't know, 35, 40 kids a year. So you can learn from anybody at any place, at anywhere, at any time. You just got to keep your eyes open and your ears open.
My favorite part of that was at one point he mentioned Sizzler, which I'm not even sure how many Sizzlers are open anymore, but
we got a Golden Corral a couple blocks away next to that old movie theater. So if I feel like it's my wife and I's 25th wedding anniversary this year, so if she gets lucky, maybe I'll take her over there for an anniversary meal or something like that. So
all you can eat, it'd be great.
Hey, I'm a teacher. I'm on a budget. So
right. So with you, we kind of want to take our show in two parts with you. And the first part, we really want to focus on offense. And, I think you're a phenomenal guest to talk about this with, just because of your experiences and seeing and talking to so many coaches and having now all that knowledge you've attained to apply it to you and your team. So I want to start off with, for you, just in offensive development, how do you go about picking your offense when you take over at a school? Do you match it with your personnel? Do you match your personnel to your offense? Kind of take us through, at first, maybe that bottom foundational conceptual piece of you as a head coach picking an offense for your team.
I think before you do anything, you got to be fundamentally sound. It doesn't matter what you run. You can run the triangle, you can run motion, you can run dribble drive. If you're not fundamentally sound, it doesn't matter what you run. When it comes to your system, I think you do have to match your knowledge with your player's skill set. I think it's got to be both. So I'm not going to teach the flex because I don't know a ton about the flex. I could educate myself about the flex, but I'm not comfortable teaching it. So I've got to find something that I'm comfortable teaching, that I know that what I'm talking about, and I feel good with what I'm talking about, along with what fits my player's strengths. I've always believed you need to have, I wrote it down here, a permanent yet flexible system. That's the phrase I would use, a permanent yet flexible system. So for us, I've really dove in on the motion. And a lot of that, again, came from Coach Younger's. You got to teach your players how to play. You can't teach plays. You need plays. Don't get me wrong. You need plays, but you got to teach your players how to play. And the farther along we go, I mean, when we were playing, guys, it was at best you had VHS scouting, that type of stuff, and some live scouting. Today with Huddle, you can break down so many things, and you go into postseason play. Everybody's going to know your stuff. Everybody's going to know your stuff. So you need players that can make plays. And so we've gone with a motion-based system. Now we can tweak that. We can go 5 out. We can go 4 out with a girl in dunker spot. We can go with a 4 out with a girl posting up the entire time and following the ball. We can run a little post exchange type of stuff. So that's what we do. I'm comfortable teaching that. Some other coaches are going to say, I want to teach flex. I want to teach 3 out, 2 in. High-low type of stuff. So I think that you have to have a permanent yet flexible system to implement with your program. I don't really believe in changing your system every year or two. I think that's just too difficult. I think that you, especially for me in the situation I'm in right now, I'm at a small school. We have about 60 kids per class. So we have 30 girls, let's say, and out of those 30, we're lucky to get 8 to 10 of them that play basketball. We want to be able to teach those principles so that starting in about 7th grade, we start implementing our system at the basic level. 8th grade, we add a little bit more. 9th grade, we add more, and we keep moving that forward. And the way we explain it to our youth coaches is, you implementing this in 7th grade is actually going to make us better because A, they're going to be more familiar with it, and B, that will actually allow us more time to work on fundamentals in high school instead of reintroducing everything with, how to, the X's and O's type of stuff. And so I think that it's important that you have that continuity throughout your program, and you got to be a little bit dictatorial about it. You have to say, as the varsity coach, I'm sorry, 7th grade coach, you're going to do this like this. That's just the way that it is, because this is what we need to do to be as good as we can be at the high school level. And so whether that's offense, whether that's defense, I think that's important that you do that.
So let's kind of take that next step. Then you've decided that's what you're going to do.
Mhm.
You know, implementing it and adding drills and your concepts, how do you go
Mhm.
about doing that? And then picking the core drills you're going to do every day,
Mhm.
or, and obviously that's different for every person based on,
Yeah.
kind of their emphasis, but maybe what are some of your core drills and how do you implement those drills to match to your system and what you're doing?
So one of the things that I really when you have 2 years to self-evaluate, that's a long time, guys. That's a long time. So one of the things that I realized is we got to spend more time on offense. Um, we can and everything that we do. So when it comes to drills, I have a list, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me right now. I have a list of like 11 or 12 basic skills in basketball, dribbling, passing, shooting, blah, 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 boxing out, etc. We don't have a drill in practice that we do out of those. I think there's 11 of them. Out of those 11 basic skills, we don't implement a drill unless it has at least 3 of those skills because we only have so much time. So now we violate that rule for one thing, shooting. We violate it for one thing, and that's shooting. Okay. So because our time is limited, our time is limited with our kids. We need to give our kids more time off. I believe. I think that our kids are just, the adults have kind of taken the joy out of the game in a lot of ways for kids. So we need to be as efficient as we can be with our players. And how are we going to do that? We're going to make sure our drill work is going to fit a certain criteria. So when we're building that offense, we have a core set of about 8 to 9 drills. And out of those 8 to 9 drills, we run 4 or 5 of those drills every day to implement our motion movement. Sometimes it's 3-on-0 shooting. Sometimes it's our Nova Rips drill. Sometimes it's our Manhattan drill. But we've got 8 or 9 drills, and if anybody wants them, they can reach out to me, and I'm sure we'll get to that point at some point. But that's what we do. And I used to be the guy. I was going through some old stuff. I had a spreadsheet, and I don't know how many stinking drills I had. Like, that spreadsheet just kept going and going and going. I was like, oh my God, this is so inefficient. This is way too many drills. Narrow down your drill list. Don Meyer used to say, if you're going to add something, you've got to subtract something. And so when you're putting together your list to develop your offense, I would encourage you to keep it to 8 or 9 drills of how you're going to implement your base offense and everything that goes into your base offense, and run the snot out of those 8 or 9 drills with little tweaks here and there. Maybe a different scoring system one day, maybe a different timing system another day. Maybe you're going 3-on-0, or maybe you're going 3-on-0 shooting and you're not having any defense that day, but the next day you go 3-on-3 and you're going more live out of that, and tweak your drills like that to develop your system. So we have a set system that we're going to start with Nova Rips, and then we're going to go to our Manhattan drill, and then we're going to go to our first cutter, our second cutter, our 7-on-0 pass, cut, and replace, PCR is what we call it. And that helps implement our motion system.
I'm stealing things as he's talking, so thank you for that. We wanted to now tie in your baseline and your sideline out of bounds.
Mm-hmm.
So in thinking about the way you build your offense and your offensive system, are there concepts that you tie into like your baseline out of bounds series? Are there concepts you tie into those sideline plays? Kind of take us through those areas of your offense.
I think it's really important that you, whatever you decide to do, I think you do pretty much everything out of the same formation on your baseline and sideline, because it's the one, it's situations where the defense is set, the offense is set. And so, like I said, with huddle and whatever you guys use there in Illinois, you use huddle over in Illinois. All right. So folks are going to, if you set up in a different setup, if you're going against smart coaches, and most coaches are pretty smart, they're going to do their homework. They're going to be able to figure out what you're running. So we do put everything out of the same formation. I think it's really important that you really hammer in those baseline and sideline out of bounds plays, offensively and defensively. It's a way to, it's winning on the margins. If you can, and one of the things that I came into with this current job, The girls had won 10 games in 3 years. They had won 10 games in 3 years. I think their record was like 10-60 the last 3 years. And I said, one of the first things we're going to do, we're going to really emphasize special situations and sideline out of bounds plays, baseline out of bounds plays, because that's a place where you can win on the margins. If you can execute and you can get 6 points a game on offense on your baseline and sideline out of bounds plays, and then you prevent 6 points a game on your defense side of things, that's a 12-point swing just by emphasizing that extensively. I also think offensively, it's a great situation where your kids are set. You can run a set, and that's a great opportunity to get the ball exactly where you want it to go. And so if you want to get the ball, like a couple of years ago, we had an all-conference player. Okay, we are going to run the snot out of our number one baseline out of bounds play because she was a good shooter, and this is an opportunity for us to get her a shot when against that our kids can run. They could probably run it in their sleep, type of a thing. And so it seems kind of counterintuitive when I'm talking about playing a lot of motion and letting kids play when we're 5-on-5. But when we get to baseline and sideline out of opportunities, this is an opportunity for me as a coach to take over the game. When they're 5-on-5 and they're just playing, that's the player's time. When it's a baseline or sideline out of bounds play, that's when I really think your coaching steps into it, because now you're like a football coach. You're calling the play to get the play that you want to run right here in a very short amount of time, in 5 to 7 seconds, to get the shot that you want. And so I think that's so crucial. And if you're a team, any team, unless you're uber talented, and even then, there's somebody else that's really, really good somewhere along the way. Those special situations, those winning on the margins, those baseline out of bounds plays, and it may not seem like that big a deal to give up a layup in the second quarter off of baseline out of, that's still 2 points. It still counts towards the end of the game. And so we put a lot of emphasis on that in our execution. And again, going back to that development, I tell my starting around 6th grade, here's your out of bounds plays. You're gonna implement these 4 out of bounds plays. Now, number 5, if you want to put in a 5th, you can run whatever the blank you want to run. But these are going to be the first 4, and you're going to run the snot out of these 4 before you put in anything else. And that kind of puts a carrot at the end of the stick for your feeder coach. They're like, okay, I know coach is going to want to see me run 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, but if I want to put in a 5th, which I think is a great play, and I'm not saying that there's not other great plays than what Marty Plum does with Fort Calhoun girls basketball. There absolutely is. There's a million great plays, but here's what we've put this is where we put our hay in the barn on. And so if you want to do your thing, you got to do my thing first, but then go ahead and do whatever you want to do with your thing. So we really emphasize it a lot. I think it's, again, formations, run it, take 3 or 4 minutes every day and work on your out of bounds plays. Because you're going to need it. There's been there, done that. There's no worse feeling than being down 1 with 20 seconds left to go, and you got the ball underneath your own basket, and you got to run something, and you screw it up. Man, that's just. I'm lucky. I still got a pretty full head of hair. There's no gray hair yet, but those are the ones that'll make you lose hair or make it turn gray when you don't execute in those situations.
So I want to move to like the kind of the other phase of offense, your transition work, right? Mm-hmm. And how you go about making your transition kind of flow into your half court and matching those two up based on what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. So that has been a process. That's probably been the longest process that we've had to do with our rebuild here. I think with like when we took over, it was just, we got to get the ball across half court. it was simply just like that. And everybody's going to be in a different spot. Now, as we move forward and our, without a doubt, guys, and I have nothing to do with this. We have better players now. The players that are older are, ingrained in our culture. They understand what championship habits are. But we have younger kids that are, they're just going to make me look smarter. It has nothing to do with Marty Plum being a coach. I'm just being dead honest. And we, over the next 3 or 4 years, 3, 4, 5 years, we got a chance to be really good. because we have better players. I mean, and that's nothing against those kids that I coached previously. They're awesome kids that worked their tail off, that maxed out everything that they had. And I can't thank them enough for it. All right. But with our transition game, we had to kind of crawl, walk, run, because along with special situations, the first thing I told the kids when I took over, we got to take care of the ball better. And so we had to, literally the first thing that I implemented was not an offense, was not a defense, no drills. We walked in, and the first thing I walked in, the first day that I had a chance to work with these girls, and this was right smack dab in the middle of COVID, all right, we worked on a press break, and we spent 20 minutes on implementing the press break that we were going to use. And so I think everybody's situation is different. The most important thing is, before you start thinking about a whole bunch of transition stuff, is just getting that doggone ball across half court. Now we're in a situation where we feel like we've got again a good base of talent that we can do more. So we are implementing, and we started it last year. We had a rash of injuries. We couldn't do as much with it as what we wanted to. But the old Paul Westhead, Loyola Marymount, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 runs the right, 3 runs the left, get a rim runner. Mike Neighbors runs kind of basically the same type of thing. And what we want to do, and what we're going to emphasize to our girls here a week from Tuesday, we got to get that ball up the floor. We've got 13 seconds to get a shot off. Okay, we're going to give them 13 seconds. We want to push that ball from the time the ball comes out of the net, and we implement. So it hits the inbounder's hands. Okay, boom, we're going to start the clock at 13 seconds, and we want to pop it out to our point guard, and our point guard has got to push it. What we teach is our point guard gets her heels to the sideline on the right side there. Okay, and then it's cutting to the middle, and she's reading it. So I'm looking at it from the point guard's point of view. The 3 is on the left side. We're looking for the 3. If that's not there, you're looking for the rim runner. If the rim runner is not there, you're looking to the 2. If the 2 doesn't get that there, then you're, obviously, if you've got a lane, take it all the way. If nothing's there, the trailer is going to come, and we're going to run a secondary option, a simple ball screen movement type of a thing. And we want to get that ball moving as quickly as we can. We're also, and John, it might have been you that I got this from. If we don't pass it, if we don't make a decision in 1 second, it's a turnover.
That's right.
Was that you?
Yeah. That's
all right. See, hey, this is working well. All right. So we're using that. We're using that this summer. You got 1 second to make something happen. And if you don't, whistle, turnover, go. And so, that's what we're looking to do. And we want to get it out and go and pressure, put pressure on the other team. We're not a big team. We are fast. We will be fast. These freshmen and sophomores, there's a couple of kids, they won when they were in junior high, they won the entire, the state of Nebraska's, I can't remember if it was 4x4 or 4x8, all classes, so I got some fast kids. So we're going to play fast. We're going to play fast, and we're going to get it up and down the floor. And so we want to get that out. We want to push it. And so that's what we're looking to do. And if you're going to commit to that, you really got to commit to it. And one of the things that I struggle with, and this is going to be year, 2027, 28. How do I balance, the line I've told the girls this summer? How fast can we play without turning the ball over? That's where we need to push it. That's the line we want to push. How fast can we play without turning the ball over? And that's the line that we're going to use a week from Tuesday. And that's what we got to figure out. And that's what we're going to spend all summer trying to figure out. How fast can we play without turning the ball over? And it's going to be ugly at times, but now's the time to experiment with it. I'm not putting any of these summer games on my resume. So we're going to try and figure it out, and we're going to move a lot of kids around. And I think that's a great time to do it.
So I as you were talking, I had a follow-up question. You just led perfectly into it. You talk about that 1 second, and when you start doing that's going to be very ugly at times, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, I've talked to John about this a lot, but in your thinking initially now, right? And obviously you'll change and come up with some ideas as you go through it, but helping the girls through that phase, right? Of not getting too down and not necessarily doubting the system, right? Because they're like, oh, 1 second, and oh no, turnover, and they're like, oh, crap, like, a lot of times they're not knowing what to necessarily do,
Mhm.
right? And maybe not trusting the system as much. So how are you initially thinking like, hey, helping these girls through it to kind of trust it and go through the process and help them kind of see the bigger picture?
Yeah, allow for mistakes, praise the crap out of it when they do it really, really well. Praise aggressive mistakes. If my point guard has it and she pops it up and she sees a rim runner and she throws it over her head and goes out of bounds, hey, great look, love it, keep looking for that. Things like that. I'm going to have to allow for mistakes. I'm going to have to allow for sloppy turnovers, knowing that there's going to be something at the end of it, and then we reevaluate. Okay, hey, we went a little bit too fast that time. Let's just gear it back just a little bit. But I'd rather bring them back than try to get them going. You can always bring them back a little bit. It's hard to push that. It's hard to get that habit to push them into the pace. So it's going to be a lot, and I think that I hope I do a pretty good job of staying positive with the kids. It's a goal of mine. I think that when you're doing this, it's a subtle push, but I don't think you can be over at the sideline, go, and you're just yipping the entire time. It's just going to be, all right, come on, let's play with pace. And somewhere along the way, they'll come out a phrase or two that will land upon, that will narrow that down. So, it's going to be like the Kevin Eastman bullet point, so I said, how fast can we play without turning the ball over? Like, God, that's way too long. What's something that I can come up with? And that's what I'm going to be doing on Wednesday and Thursday is how can I narrow that phrase down to something that's relatable that we can pop out in a second rather than that 4-second verbal diarrhea that's flowing out of my mouth there. So that's the plan. Hopefully we can figure it out.
All right, so we want to go into halftime adjustments here. This is more of a basketball, maybe X's and O's situational type thing. You talked about your special situations, right? So when you're looking at those, maybe it's your blobs, your slobs, your maybe end of game stuff. What kind of things are you really looking for? You talked about, controlling where the ball goes and things like that, but maybe in those situations, kind of as you go through the game, how are you analyzing it to say, oh, okay, we can get this maybe or this, thinking those 2 or 3 steps ahead, right? Because as a coach, you're always thinking as the game goes, okay, tight game here, we might need this or we might need that. So how are you kind of analyzing that to get kind of what you want, based on what you have in for your team?
I think a lot of that goes into film study before the game, knowing your opponent, knowing your team, and thinking about that situation before it even happens. There was a great story, and this really hit me hard. And I was lucky. I read this story when I was a younger head coach. Bill Walsh was offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals for 7 or 8 years, long before he became the Bill Walsh that we all know in football history today. And he was talking about a game they were playing at Oakland, I think it was, and they got a turnover and there was 2 minutes left in the game, and he was the offensive coordinator. He's supposed to call, and he just froze. He wasn't sure what he was supposed to do. He ended up not calling the plays that he would have called, blah, blah, blah. And from that point on, he was like, I'm never going to be in that situation again. I'm always going to be prepared for whatever may be thrown at me. So that story really stuck with me, that I'm going to go into pretty much every game knowing, okay, having an idea in my head, we've got our 7 or 8 plays. All right. If we're down 2 with 30 seconds left, we're going to run corner post for Jovi, and that's what we're going to run. These are the pressures that I think are going to work. And we're going to talk about these, some of this stuff, not all of it, but some of it before the day before, when we're scouting and getting ready for it. Girls, we really feel like tomorrow night it's going to be a lot of black press. So yeah, we're going to start out in our yellow press, but be ready for us to go to our black press, because we really feel like that's going to be our winner here. So be ready for that. Things like that. And I have for every game, I have a sheet a game sheet. It's kind of like a football coach's type of sheet that you see there. And I have 3 or 4 different lineups. You know, if we need a 3-pointer, who do I want in the game? If we're press break team, here's our press break team. Here's our scramble defensive team. If we really need to press, here's our 5 kids that we want out on that floor. Now, does that mean that's okay? I wrote it down, I'm going to do it? No, but it gives me a starting point, and that's 5 seconds less that I have to think about something in the heat of the moment, which gives me 5 more seconds to coach that huddle on a timeout or a quarter break or things like that. So those are things that I've done, and really think about and think through before we even get into the game. And I think that you have to, that has to be part of your game plan. Again, unless you're uber talented, and 99% of us don't have uber talented teams. We've got to win on those margins, and those are ways that you can win on the margin.
So now we want to kind of tweak it into the second half of our show. And obviously we're going to now talk about defense.
All right.
So similar to my first question that I asked you about offense and picking your offensive or your defensive style now, you know, what do you think coaches should look to do when they're deciding on defense? Because it can be, yes, speed and size obviously are important to all aspects, but kind of let's go into, you know, how would you pick your defensive concepts and system and style?
Mm-hmm. Same type of thing with the offense. You got to teach what you know, but you also have to match it with your personnel. I like the 1-3-1 defense. I've never taught the 1-3-1 defense. I've never played under a coach that played the 1-3-1, and 1-3-1 is big in certain areas of Nebraska here. So I don't know it very well. So I'm not going to teach it. I'm not going to try and teach it. I'm going to teach what I'm comfortable teaching. So for our situation, when I took over, our tallest girl was about 5'7", and that's if she curled her bangs that day. And everybody was about 5'7", with the exception of one kid was about 5'4", and the other, we had one like girl that was 5'9" or 5'10". So let's switch everything. I mean, literally 1 through 5, we're going to switch everything. We're going to stay inside the ball. We're going to crowd the lane. We're going to full front the post. And that's stuff that I had done before, and I was comfortable with it. Not as much the switching part of it, but that's one tweak that I can make with something that I already believed in, that, okay, what are, you know, basically run our same defensive type of system, but now we're switching everything instead of fighting through every screen. So now when we do our 2-on-2 or 3-on-3, we talk about, communicating that switch, taking a step below, make sure nobody slips us, gets to the basket on a slip cut or stuff like that. So I think defensively, you look to, like I said, if you can zig when other people are zagging, I think that's a great thing to do. It's kind of like when the spread offense came into college football, when I think Oregon was kind of the first team to really do it. Well, nobody could stop it because Oregon was the only one that could run it. Okay. Well, then everybody started doing what Oregon does. And now it's still not easy to stop, but it's more stoppable because you see it 9 weeks out of the year instead of 1 week out of the year. And so that same type of thing, if you can come up with something that's a little bit different than what other people do, I think that's a good thing. And so, you know, that's what I look to do when implementing a system. You got to fit your personnel, but you got to know what you're teaching. You got to feel comfortable teaching. You got to feel confident with what you're teaching. Your players can see right through. If you're not confident in what you're teaching on something, they're going to see it. And so you've got to feel really, really good about what you're teaching in order for your players to really buy into what you're doing.
All right. Same kind of pattern here. Similarly. Oh, so you talked about you're switching, and, you know, obviously you have your drills to go with that, but I want to tweak this one a little bit. You know, so you're working on your defensive concepts. Let's just use switching. How do you kind of script situations for your players to see them and adjust to them, right? You know, because you have, okay, we're gonna do this on the switch, we're gonna go under, whatever, but, you know, don't want them to slip, but they also have to see it, not just say it, right? They can know, hey, this is what we're gonna do, but they have to be executed. So when you're working your defensive stuff, you know, how are you kind of scripting those drills and those situations to help them see those things, you know, and be prepared for kind of whatever happens throughout a game?
Let them that seems, you got to let them screw. And then, right, pray is exactly what we're looking for. Move on. Okay, now do it, now do it again, Mary. Like with our defense, if we've got 2 or 3 coaches watching the floor, we tell the girls, all right, Coach Plum is watching off the ball. Coach Apple is watching on the ball. Coach Eastman is watching the offense. And so that helps our coaches focus on, okay, I'm not supposed to just watch the ball, because you know how it is, fellas. You get into it and you start watching the ball and you lose track of everything else. So now I put the responsibility on myself and my coaching staff. I'm responsible for watching here on this situation. I really believe you got to rep it. We have a thing, got this from Rick Pitino, 7-second corrections. So when we correct something, if we can't correct it in 7 seconds or less on the floor, we sub the kid out, the coach talks to the kid off to the side, and we start going again. Because this is the TikTok generation. This is the YouTube generation. They don't want a 4-minute diatribe on footwork, on rebounding. Move the blank forward and rep it and go through it that way. And we go very, very quickly. And again, we try to coach in sound bites. I hope that if a coach came to our practice, which they're, if you're in the Omaha, Iowa area, whatever, you're more than welcome to come to any of our practices. We are not the CIA. We are not the National Security Agency. We're not doing anything like that. Come on in. We'll show you exactly what we're doing. But we want to move quickly. We don't do a lot of running in practice because we want to keep moving so fast within our drills that our kids are gassed with what we're doing. So we do it like that. That's how we correct it. And again, I talked earlier about having those that list of 11 or 12 fundamentals of basketball that we've narrowed it down to. Well, hopefully with everything that we're doing, now I will say the one thing we do every day when it comes to our defense, we close out every day. We work on closeouts. I don't care if you're a zone coach. I don't care if you're a man coach. I don't care, whatever. You have to close out in every defense that you do. And if you can't close out and keep it one-on-one as much as you can defensively, you're going to be in trouble. And so we emphasize closeouts probably more than anything else, because if we can keep it 5-on-5 instead of 5-on-4 or 5-on-3 because our opponent's got us in the blender here, it doesn't matter what we run. So that is the one thing that we really, really emphasize. And I'll be honest with you guys, I don't do nearly as much. I've taken a lot of that time that I would defensive drill and move it into offensive skill development and fundamentals. And then we just do a lot of 4-on-4 on 5-on-5 when it comes to our defensive development, because essentially that's the way you're going to play it anyway. And that helps us with, again, we're still a smaller team. We're not very big. So we've got to load to that ball. We've got to get great weak side help. We've got to full front that post and do the things that we do on defense. And so that's how we try to teach that in that regard.
All right, I'm gonna follow here. You talked about closeouts, and I feel like closeouts sometimes gets controversial, right? A lot of people think this is the way you got to do it, and that's what they stick with. I kind of believe like different ways to skin a cat. But what are you teaching in your closeouts?
We teach topside closeouts, push everything baseline, sideline. We don't want the ball to get to the middle of the floor. Again, with a smaller team, we want to make it, if we can buy time helping in the lane, if we can load up the lane and buy time on reversals by getting on that top side closeout and keeping the ball on one side of the floor or the other, that's going to help us. That being said, I've run the Tony Bennett gap defense before. I've done this long enough. I've screwed it up in a lot of different ways. We run a lot of different things, but I've kind of fallen into that with our group. And again, coaching girls is a little bit different. Like if we force baseline sideline and we force them into that short corner area, we're giving up that diagonal pass on the weak side for the kick out. In girls basketball, you can get away with that probably more because most girls it's going to be difficult for them to turn, get that body, move that forward, snap that pass off all the way across and see that and hit that player on time, on target for the wide open three that you're giving up. Now, my son, our oldest son, worked for Coach Hoiberg the last 4 years at Nebraska. And, give Coach Hoiberg credit. He finally started listening to me, and they started doing a lot of big topside closeouts. I'm just kidding, Fred. That's a joke, people. Believe me, that's the joke of all jokes, that Fred Hoiberg's going to listen to this guy. But I was talking to one of Michael's friends, my son Michael, who's a GA, and we started talking after one of the games about shell drill and doing this and doing that. And he said, yeah, the one thing that we're susceptible to is that skip. I say, yeah, and we can do it because at the girls' high school level, it's a lot harder for girls to throw that pass. But when you're at the Division I level and you got stud athletes, you got to really work on that secondary closeout if that skip happens, because those guys can make that pass a heck of a lot easier. So that's our belief. I'm not saying we're right. I'm not saying we're wrong. That's what we do. We're comfortable with it. We know we're going to give up something. That's what we choose to give up. Every defense is going to give up something. There's no defense that doesn't give up anything, and if there was, everybody would run that defense. So that's what we're comfortable with.
So I kind of want to tweak this one as well, based on something you said that I really liked, which was the, scoring 6 points on baseline out of bounds plays, and then trying to prevent the other team from scoring those 6 points. So take us through, you're scouting a team coming up that you're about to play. What are the things you're looking for in their baseline out of bounds plays? Maybe besides formation, because I think formation is obviously a bigger giveaway. What are some things you're looking to either take away or do to prevent those 6 points?
We're going to pack the lane. We're going to stay inside of everything on that. We're not going to give up a layup. If they're going to beat us, have them beat us with a jump shot. I don't know. What do you guys think? At least well over half of out of bounds plays are set up to try and get a layup, probably, of some sort. I know for us, let me think of our plays. 1, 2, probably 75% of our out of bounds plays are set up to get a layup in some way, shape, or form. So take away the lane is the number one thing. That person, we choose to take the girl on the ball and have her in the lane and taking away everything from that weak side. And then we're working on staying below the ball, stay below the ball. Our kids, if they had a nickel for every time that they heard that, they would be pretty rich kids on out of bounds plays. Stay below the ball. On sideline out of bounds plays, we don't put a girl up on the ball. We're going to have her play off and help kind of play a little free safety, again, to take away anything easy. Now, that changes in, let's say, with 3 seconds left or 5 seconds left in a quarter and a half in a game. We might change that philosophy, and we've got some things that we do there that are different that, I'm just going to keep that to myself right now. But that's what we do. We talk about themes. We talk about, for example, baseline out of bounds play. Ball goes thrown to the corner. There's some sort of action where the ball is thrown to the strong side corner. You guys follow me? Okay. What's going to happen 90% of the time when that happens? It's going to be a rescreen for the inbounder. It's going to be a rescreen in one corner or the other for the inbounder or somebody else. So our kids know when they see that ball thrown to the corner, they better know it's going to be a rescreen. It's going to be a rescreen. Now, if they do something else, God bless you, we'll get beat off of that. But 90% of the time, we're going to take away that rescreen and not let that happen. So those are things that we implement on a daily basis, teaching the concepts of the game, teaching kind of basketball IQ stuff, so that hopefully our kids pick up on that type of thing.
Yeah, my girls laugh at me all the time. I said there's a reason it's called America's play, because everybody in America runs it, right? Like it's the same, it's the same one all the time. And I go, oh my guys, come on.
Yeah, we literally have a play called America, because everybody, the elevator play, and
or the rescreen, the inbounder.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same one, and everybody runs.
Yep.
So okay, we talked about transition offense. Now you're playing at pace and you're going, but what are you looking to do? Again, winning those margins, right? Preventing them from getting easy transition buckets when you're trying to get them. What are you talking about in your transition defense? and again, flowing that into what you're doing in the half court. You get it stopped. Now we're in good position to play half court defense.
So we've done two different things. Again, kind of like with our transition offense, we've tried to evolve with this. And as we've gotten deeper and more athletic, we're becoming more aggressive. When I took over, another thing that I told our girls is we're not going to try to get an offensive rebound. And they looked at me like I was speaking Latin. No, you don't. We're 5'6". We're not going to get a ton of offensive rebounds. So we're not going to give up anything easy in transition. That shot gets up, you get your butt back, and we're going to defend the basket. Now, again, we're deeper, we're more athletic. We've kind of gone to more of a we're going to crash the boards hard now because we're more athletic. We can put more pressure, and then we call it smother, deny, and three back. Okay, so shot goes up, we miss. The nearest girl to the ball is supposed to smother it, mirror the ball. We're not reaching, we're not getting that 94-foot foul, that type of thing. The next closest girl to the outlet is denying. Okay. And if you're not smothering and you're not denying, get your tookus back in the lane and form a triangle in the lane. What we will hopefully do as we grow here is we want to pressure and we want to trap and rotate out of it. So we're looking to smother, deny, and then once we've stopped that ball, okay, let's pick it up. They start to dribble. Let's run and jump out of it. Let's trap it. Let's rotate it. Let's put pressure on people. And it's going to be a gamble. We're going to give up a little bit more, but I think we'll get a lot more. So I teach history, but if we score 12 points on layups off of defensive transition, but we only give up 4, we're +8 in that category. And so again, it's that give and take. If you want to play pace offense, you got to be a couple of extra turnovers to get the game more like this, which you think is going to be more to your advantage. We could play it more conservatively in our defensive transition now, but I don't think that's good for us. I think it's better for us if we are more aggressive. And yeah, we're going to give up a layup or two, but I think we're going to cause more chaos, and it's actually going to be better for us in the long term, whether that's getting turnovers, getting layups, or just wearing out the other team. And so by halfway through the third quarter, they're grabbing their shorts and they're really, really tired. And now we got them exactly where we want them. And then we hopefully take it from there. That's the theory. I'm going to see if I can screw it up here. So,
well, yeah, I mean, and now you're making teams play at your pace,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome. You and John are kindred spirits here. I like it. I like you guys are. Yeah. I hear this from John all the time. So, we want to move to our last 2 segments here. First one is 30-second timeout. Your dime, your dance floor to talk about anything you want to talk about. It could be basketball related. It could be whatever you feel like talking about with us today. It's all you, and there's nobody telling you first horn, second horn. We're not wearing
guys. I do this all the time. I ask questions all the time. I don't want to ask any questions. I'm more comfortable with you guys. I don't want to think any more than I have to. This is fun for me, not having to ask all the questions. So if you got something for me, let's go with that, because I'm good. I got more questions to ask tonight and tomorrow and the day after that. So you throw an extra question at me if you want to.
All right. Well, I'll go with this. Maybe, something we've talked about, all these things you like to do and, that you're comfortable with, but maybe something that you're looking at that you really want to learn more about, that you think, hey, if I really learn this and dig deep into this could be something. I kind of like it on its outer shell, right? Mm-hmm. But I want to get into it more and maybe see if it's something I would be comfortable really learning about and teaching and using.
Are you talking like X's and O's or just overall philosophy?
Anything, any way you want to go.
Yeah, I think that the older I get, or the more experienced I get, the more seasoned I get. I don't like using that O word there. I think less of this and more of leadership principles, how to just be the best overall leader that I can be from the bottom in the program. I still, my dad, my dad is other than my little brother, my dad is the back person I've ever met in my life. So my brother and my dad are just kind of these calm dudes that just kind of hang out. And sometimes I wish, and I think I'm pretty calm, I look like I'm just all wound up compared to those guys. And I've always been fascinated with guys like Brad Stevens. I always, Brad Stevens, the way he his sideline decorum and the way that he coached his teams. I always really admired that, whether it was the Celtics or with Butler. And so looking at that and watching other coaches coach is a fascinating thing for me. And I think that there's so much to be picked up on, most of it positive, but there's also, I don't want to do that. I don't want to, that was a bad move. And I'm like, I kind of Italian blood in me. I get it a little bit. My mom was pretty much Italian, and so I've got a little bit more up and go, and I'm just kind of fought that inner struggle of bringing that back in, and I feel like I'm in a much better place now than I was before. And that's something that I'm always looking at and watching other coaches coach, whether that's baseball, football, basketball. It's just something that I've fighting that part of it for me. And maybe there's other people that watch me and go, "Oh, you're doing fine. I don't know what you're talking about." But that's always been kind of one of my things that I've always kind of wanted to work on and get better at, because I think that's a really important place to start for your program is how are you conducting yourself? You can say all the things that you want, but if you don't do it, you can talk the talk all you want, but you got to walk the walk. And if you're going to tell your kids to keep their composure, but you're over there freaking out on the sideline, it ain't going to work. It just isn't. It just is not going to work. And so those are things that I'm constantly working on and trying to develop as a coach to make myself as well-rounded as possible.
All right, so we're going to jump into our last segment, which is quick hitters.
Okay.
As Todd and I like to say, sometimes this is where the wheels fall off the show.
Hey, that's all right. That's all right.
It's just an opportunity for us to ask some quick hitting questions, have some fun with our guests. So the first one for us is we'll start a little sports related. Most underrated coach and why you feel they're so underrated.
I think there's a lot of underrated coaches. I'll ask a coach to be on my show, my podcast, and they'll be like, "Coach, with the people that you've had on, there's no way I don't belong. No way. I'm not gonna." Look, if I didn't think you were a good coach, I don't care what your record is. I know personally of some great coaches that have probably below 500 career records. And I know some coaches who people deem are great coaches that just have great talent, and they've been very fortunate. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. So that's, I think that anytime a coach puts their value, and I think this is one of the things that burnt me out, guys. I felt like I was, if we didn't get to the state tournament, that I was a disappointment, that I wasn't doing the job correctly. Looking back on it, I think we really maximized the talent that we had. Those kids played their tails off for us. They gave us everything that they had. We really competed really, really well with the talent that we had. I really think, guys, my first 2 years at Fort Calhoun, we went 8-16 and 9-14. I'm going to tell you right now, looking back on my career, I think those are two of my best coaching jobs that I've ever done. And we finished well below 500 in both situations. So I think that's a part of it is don't, and I think that's a frustrating part for a lot of coaches is we judge ourselves by the scoreboard. Are you getting the most out of your kids? Are they having a great experience? Are they doing this? And that's going to be relative to every situation. And so for all the coaches that are living, 50% of games are won and 50% of games are lost. And that's just the way this stupid thing works. So I really feel like when I saw this on here, And I love this concept, by the way, guys. This is good. I think that anybody who just I'm a good coach because we went 20-5 last year. Okay, great. So am I dumber next year when we go 10-12? No, I'm not dumber. I'm probably actually a little bit better, but for whatever reason, whether it's not as good of players or we had some injuries or we had this or we had that, no, you're not. I mean, was Doc Rivers dumber a month ago than he was last week? No, he's not. I mean, just stuff like that. And so I will say, and I want to put this out here, we're getting more and more removed from Coach Meyer and Bob Starkey, who I'm really lucky to. I guess I'll call Bob an acquaintance of mine. He's a Don Meyer guy. If you're a young coach, if you're a coach listening to this and you haven't deep dove on Don Meyer, you're not doing your job. You need, if you're going to buy anything this summer other than a pen and a napkin products, buy stuff from coachmeyer.com. Now that's a shameless plug of a pen and a napkin.com. And again, I'll throw that out there again. But in all seriousness, Coach Meyer passed away. It's got to be about 10-12 years. You guys know how these things work. The farther they get into the rearview mirror, the less that they're remembered. Part of one of the things that I've really made a conscientious effort to do here in the last few weeks is to talk about Coach Meyer even more often, because I know how influential he was on me and how influential he was on so many other coaches. So, look up Coach Meyer stuff. There's so much stuff out there. Order it, examine it, write notes. It's some of the best stuff that you'll ever do.
No doubt, it's really good stuff. And you talked about Doc Rivers, but I'll go an underrated coach here, Eric Spoelstra. That guy is coaching his tail off right now.
Yeah.
Now he's got Jimmy Butler, who's kind of on a heater right now, but Eric Spoelstra, I think it was the other day, they played all man first and third quarter, then second and fourth, they're zone and matching up, and it's not a typical NBA zone, just playing it like that. They're really good. So
yeah, he's I forget who I was talking to, but he's kind of this generation's Popovich right now. And he's playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. And he's got a great built-in advantage with Pat Riley being there, and Pat Riley's an all-time great. And but yeah, he's and again, it helps when the calendar turns to April and May and you've got Jimmy Butler, and now he's really ready to roll. Because he's a dog, man. He is a dog. He is a dog.
All right, next one here. Favorite TV broadcaster in sports?
Living or dead?
Doesn't matter.
John, you know where I'm going with this one.
He's going to go Cubs related, so go ahead, Coach.
Okay, that's okay.
It's got to be Harry Carey. I mean, done, over with. Yeah. Harry Carey helped raise me along with John Hughes movies, MTV, and my parents. So it's got to be Harry Carey. I mean, what other guy could have what other person on the planet could have the blood alcohol content in his veins that would kill an adult rhinoceros and still be able to call 9 innings in a semi-coherent fashion? So it's got to be Harry Carey. They're done. The door is shut on that. That was an easy one.
I like that we got an MTV reference. Rest in peace,
I
MTV.
like that
it's
too.
It's not the same anymore.
Oh, hey.
John Hughes movies.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to be honest with you. We're taping this on a Sunday morning. Every Sunday morning from 8 to 11, I listen to a Casey Kasem retro 1980s countdown.
Yeah.
And it's this week from 1984. Guys, this is right when I was going into junior high. This is when I started figuring out that girls were pretty and all this other stuff. And I hope I appreciate you guys enough that I am missing out on my weekly thing here. Yeah. So this is how much I love you guys. This is good. But man, it's killing. I saw the list. We got Thompson twins. We got Duran. We got John Cougar. We got Prince. We got Madonna. I mean, this is just murderers row week. We got some good one-hit wonders that were in there. So, but I'm willing to do this for you guys on a Sunday morning. So
we appreciate it, Coach.
All right. So best thing you've ever purchased online?
Amazon.com is just a son of a gun. And I'm a sucker for any good coaching book that I see on Amazon.com. So I've got three really, no, 4 or 5 really big bookshelves filled with either history nerd books or sports books. And I would say I've spent a small fortune on Amazon.com on just getting good books. And I think that's, I think, YouTube's great. Championship Productions, A Pen and a Napkin, all these other things. Twitter is great. But I also think there's something to be said for just sitting down and really breaking down a good book on leadership, or a good book on a story of a basketball team or something like that, because I just reading keeps you sharp. And for me, I think that's really important, that you read a lot. I think in the last 10-20 years, we kind of lost track of that a little bit. So Amazon.com, any good book that I can order from there, that's good stuff.
Now, does it take longer to get there, in Nebraska? Because, us people in Chicago don't think anything exists outside of like our little area.
We actually have, the truth be told, where we live, they built a huge Amazon warehouse about a mile away.
There you go.
It's been sitting there for, I'm not kidding you guys, it's been sitting there for like a year. And they still haven't done anything with us. And my wife and I were actually talking about this yesterday. How would you like to be Jeff Bezos and build this massive 100,000 square foot facility and be like, we'll open it when we open it? That's insane. So, yeah, I mean, it does get here,
I'm just teasing.
I know you are. I get you, man.
Favorite thing in the classroom? In your
classroom?
So
like a favorite physical thing in my classroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's what I thought you meant. I have my parents, when I was about 14 and my brother was about 10. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. And my parents bought my brother this Michael Jordan countdown basketball. So it's kind of like what the Dr. Dish is today, where it's got the net hooked on it and it had the little countdown thing, and you plug that in and you could keep track of how many shots you made and all this other stuff. And my brother got that for Christmas, like in 1989. And by New Year's, that was mine. And it's been mine ever since. And I still have that in my classroom. I use it the day before the test. We review. We call it low budget basketball Jeopardy, and we do things with that. And so yeah, that's my favorite thing in my classroom is my Michael Jordan hoop from 1989. When I was a kid, the house I grew up in when I was a kid, it was this huge Victorian mansion. And the attic, half of the attic was a ballroom. So it was a big room. It was probably about 20 feet wide and about 25 feet long. And the ceiling was 10, 11 feet high. So I could take that hoop and put it up there and just go up and hoop whenever I wanted to. And truth be told, guys, when I get a little bit stressed, if I'm a little bit nervous before the game, and this is kind of embarrassing as a man who's about to enter his 5th decade here walking the planet, I will get out my Nerf ball and put some shots up for 5 or 10 minutes just to burn off some nervous energy before a game or something like that. So that's far and away probably my favorite thing in my classroom.
Okay, I thought this was an interesting one, which was a home appliance that you couldn't live without.
So I've got 2 things for you. And this is going to sound bizarre. And if you haven't figured out, I've got some quirks, then you're a little slow on the uptick here. I have a favorite spatula, guys. I have a spatula that I don't know if you guys know the movie UHF. It's Weird Al Yankovic and Kramer before he became Kramer. And there's this advertisement, and there's a store in it called Spatula City. And so I always think of that so I have a spatula. And then last year for Father's Day, my wife and kids bought me a on the stove popcorn popper, old school popcorn popper on the stove. And I probably old school popcorn on the stovetop 4 or 5 nights a week. And so that's probably my favorite thing to have in the house here when it comes to cooking and that type of stuff.
All right, I'm going to ask this one, and then I'm going to add like a real hard hitting one afterwards. Not really, but I'm going to add one here. Uh,
Okay.
First one here is household chore you don't mind doing.
So, not to pat myself on the back too much, but I do a lot of stuff around the house. I do a lot of the cooking. I do, especially like in the off season, I do a lot of the laundry. And so um I actually do quite a bit of that stuff. It's kind of my way of repaying my wife for letting me, all the time that I do miss away from home, coaches clinics, doing pods, that type of thing. So I do a lot of that stuff. The one thing I hate doing, I don't mind doing the laundry. I don't mind folding the laundry. I hate putting the laundry away.
Yes,
Uh,
I agree. I
oh,
agree.
yeah,
Oh.
just that's I don't like it. I guess that would
I
be the
got
one that I would pick.
I got two young kids too, so it's just like the laundry is just constant, right? Like it's
Yes,
just turn.
absolutely.
All right, this last one. Here's the hard hitting one. All
Okay.
right. Where do you keep and organize the napkins? How do you keep your napkins organized? Because that'd be a tough thing. You can't put it online. You got to keep them somewhere.
Um, I just have a little stack. I got a bookshelf behind my desk, and then I just have a stack. I I I've thrown some, I've thrown a lot of them away, um, and I always figure, well, I can always go back if I really wanted to look for a napkin on the, I'll just go to the Twitter profile and look for it there. But
I didn't know if you had like a
uh,
library catalog of the napkins, like the old school at the library, you pulled it out, you got to go through it.
yeah, go through a scrap. You just create a scrapbook of the napkins.
Yeah.
That's actually not a bad idea to do that at some point. Maybe that'll be a retirement job.
Yeah.
So
Make it into a book or
um,
something.
yeah, there you go. There you go.
Dream.
Okay. I have a funny follow-up to that to finish the show before I let him pump his stuff a little bit. Is, do you have a favorite kind of pen?
Oh yes. Let me get it out here. I don't. It's a Bic Pilot G2 with the 0.7. There's three levels. Let's see. I put 4 up there for a second. This is why I teach history and not math. There's 3 levels. There's a 0.4, there's a 0.7, and there's a 1.0. And I'm a 0.7 guy. I don't want it too thin. I don't want it. I sound like one of the 3 bears eating Goldilocks's porridge here. I want it right in the middle. That 0.7 doesn't matter what color, black, blue, whatever it may be. But the Bic Pilot G2 07 or the 0.7 pen, that is my staple. That is my go-to. I've had more than one person ask, do you have a computer program that does that, or you type that? And no, those are legit napkins that I write on every single time I put one of those out. It's legitimately a napkin that I write on. So I've perfected the art of writing on paper, just really, really thin napkins.
It's impressive. I mean, the clarity on those things is impressive. Mine would be all goofy looking. It wouldn't even.
It takes a lot of concentration. Because I'm usually like, you guys sent me this, and this is kind of the scribbles that I have on here. So that's kind of the natural handwriting, and that's my trying to get a good grade in handwriting in 2nd grade for Mrs. McKee concentration level when I put the napkins out every day. So.
Well, Coach, before we close it out, I wanted to give you the opportunity, maybe plug your team a little bit, plug your podcast, maybe just take about 20, 30 seconds and just, let coaches know where they can get a hold of you and
Mm-hmm.
some of those things.
Mm-hmm. Well, my team, first of all, I want to give a shout out to my administrators. They are absolutely awesome. Jerry Green, Nick Wemhoff, Jamie Schleifer, awesome guys to work for. And your coaching job is only as good as your administrators. And those guys make my job really easy. They're really patient with all this, a pen and a napkin stuff. They know I borrow a little bit of time during school to do a little bit of this. I try not to abuse that privilege. I try to keep it to a minimum. Most of the stuff I try to do is outside of school. But they have been so supportive of me since day one, since I got to Fort Calhoun. So I want to say that I want to say thank you to all my youth coaches that have put in time, my youth committee, players, and hopefully this year we can really turn a corner when it comes to those wins and losses things. A pen and a napkin stuff, just on Twitter at a pen and a napkin. Got a website, a pen and a napkin.com. a lot of, I've just scanned and downloaded a lot of my, literally the authentic coaching notes and things like that have been put on there. We've got a lot of different things that you can purchase. We've got gear, we've got booklets, we've got videos that you can get there from a lot of different topics. I've got a plan to, I've got like a 28 video series that I want to complete at some point. I think I don't know, it's probably at like 17 or 18 videos. But again, kind of getting back to the whole purpose of a pen and a napkin is to help high school coaches build programs. And so there's, we've got a video on fundraising and how to fundraise stuff as a high school coach. I've got the list. I don't know. I don't want to switch off from the Zoom here to look at the thing here, but some of it is there's X's and O's stuff on there. There's offensive systems, there's defensive systems, things that I've done, things that I recommend. But there's also things that working with administrators is a video. We have a video on working with administrators and what to do with working with administrators and parents and how to work better with folks like that. These are things that you don't think about when you're thinking about being a high school coach, but they turn out to be a lot of the most important things that you can do as a high school coach. So I talk to college coaches. I talk to, every once in a while I get a chance to talk to a professional coach. But the whole thing is geared towards helping high school coaches, hone their craft and be as good as they can be. And so, email me a pen and a napkin at gmail.com, cell phone 402-990-5128. You can call me there. So just let me know. I spent an hour on the phone the other day with a young coach from Ohio, just helping him. He's 28 years old and wants to get into coaching. And so I want to help out coaches as best I can with the experiences that I've had. And so that's the whole purpose of it.
Well, Coach, thank you for joining us today. We really do appreciate your time, and this is definitely an episode people are going to learn a lot from.
Well, thank you guys. I know I do what you do. It's not easy. And keep up the great work over there in Illinois. Hopefully my Hawkeyes don't beat up on your Wildcats or Fighting Illini too badly here this fall in American football here, and we'll roll from there.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast in concert with the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association. Please remember to give us a 5-star rating wherever you may listen. For more show content and upcoming episodes, follow us on Twitter at After the Timeout and subscribe to our podcast for upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.